Hi, my name's Robert Bailey, and I'm going to be running through my second iteration of my Killing Floor level. Um, my primary focus in this level, in this iteration, was improving on, just getting essentially the game to work by adding in enemy pathing um, and doors and having a wave system, having a boss spawn. So I'm going to be walking through that. I might not get to the boss, depends on how much I talk and how long the wave goes. I'm playing a medium game to make sure I have enough time to talk through what I want to. Um, but firstly, the most visual addition right now are these doors. They swing both ways and have audio, but I've turned the volume down to compensate for the fact that I'm recording to make sure it doesn't overpower um, my my talking. Um, So I'm just going to walk through the zombie ways as I talk. The lighting has also improved slightly, but it's still a little bit more glaring than I want. Again, that's something that I'm going to be focusing on in the next update, as a lot of this was getting game logic going. Um, so you see zombies are spawning. They navigate through their zones based off of path nodes that have been placed. So they're no longer getting stuck on spots. They're moving through organically. Um, there's also item placements on the map. I'm trying to use those to help guide people into areas they might not want to be in. So, for example, that one in the hallway was to try and get people to move down that hallway, which makes a natural choke point because there's a spawn. There's a couple of spawns in this region, and oh, sweet, I'm already at the trader. Also, the trader's working, and this blue line here is also following the path node, so it works as a more visual representation of what's happening. Um, I'm playing the gunslinger, and I'm not going to talk much about the game logic. I'm playing the gunslinger, I'm not going to talk much about the game logic, because it's less interesting right now. But yeah, so this blue line, it follows back to the path. It follows down a similar path that the Zeds go through, except it rounds corners a little bit more, which is why it sometimes cuts through walls. Um, and that's because it's exaggerating its motions and its placement, which would guide Zeds to go here, here, and then out, make sure they get clear of the door. It just cuts that corner. So I might move it out slightly if it doesn't break Zed behavior, but we'll see how that goes. Oh, sweet, another item upgrade. So yeah, I'm using these to just try and force players out. They randomly spawn throughout the map. I'm not seeing all of them, and that's intentional. That's based off the game logic, and I don't mess with a lot of those parameters to make sure that it stays pretty consistent with the way the game plays in release builds and on official maps. So the the official tripwire guides were like, there's no reason to mess with it, so I found no reason to mess with that logic. Um, I did just take the biggest geometry change that happened to the map from the last iteration, where in this area, I'm gonna grab this ammo upgrade, or this ammo drop real fast. Um, so, God, that is bright. Need to fix that lighting. Um, yeah, so this spot not only allows the zombies to get more involved with the player and to engage them on more spawns. I might have made mistakes. And so it allows zombies to interact with the players more on this spawn, whereas normally a spawn in that region is really the only location that players would really have to deal with around this area. So by breaking down that wall, I'm able to. He needs to stop hitting me. Uh, gosh, all the monsters are getting in the way. By breaking down this wall, I'm able to get the zombies moving through from spawns like where this guy's heading from, in there, and um, make them more interactive. Oh, I'm getting a different trader. Okay, that was gonna be a weird bug. Uh, but that wall broken down allows it to be um, allows players to get into the game more because it also allows them um, to interact, to be able to run that in case they're getting overwhelmed, but also allows the enemies to bottle them up, but it forces a tight bottleneck in a small space, which almost messed me up, as I showed in the last wave. It also means that if a player is here and the wave ends and they want to get to the trader, they don't spend the entire, like, it takes a long time to walk around the space. This just cuts it, because players already at around, like, monster 6, as long as there's, like, less than 10 monsters, people start moving back toward the trader. So there really isn't a benefit to making it stretch out, and forcing them to a bottleneck with the remaining monsters allows players to have a non-welded place, and also that they can bottleneck monsters through, um, and a an interactive environment in that way. Speaking of interactive environment, I'm just going to demo welding real fast. So that model is going crazy, but I can weld doors, I can weld the double doors as well, and it feeds the weld there to have that texture which represents the how welded the door is. This allows players to bottleneck monsters, and control how they're spawning, uh, and that allows the players to help determine and work as a team to set up the best situations for them to deal with the monsters. That's a big part of the game. I wanted to be sure I had that in this gameplay iteration, as I was also learning all the ins and outs of the editor, and exactly, it takes a long time to set up a door. But when you get it working, it's really fun and adds in a lot of interesting gameplay elements by iterating through and allowing players to interact in those manners. So there's this spawn here to the side, which these are climbing out of, um, which would work as, I don't know, a snack bar type thing in an arena setup, and which would be pretty ubiquitous regardless of what setup there, of which sport I decide to make this arena of. I cannot shoot to save my life. There. Um, okay, now it looks like I'm finally getting that one special spawn. And yeah, so the zombies will move along their pathing to make sure that they are progressing towards the player until they see the player, at which point they become more aggressive and will just pursue the player through environments. So the pathing on the map, which again this blue line shows as a nice demonstration of, allows them to just kind of narrow in on the player eventually. So there's a couple forking paths and a couple other elements to encourage motion of the zombies without overriding the player. Um, so really, all of my pathing, I wasn't designed to like, oh, I'll flank them from this direction. Instead, I just wanted to make sure the zombies had the ability to move through the map, and that was the focus there, rather than having some clever AI. As it's like, oh, only zombies from say this spawn over here, they're gonna go around the right side and through. It's like, no, I didn't think that really made sense thematically, and that doesn't seem to be how any other official maps play. The zombies just go straight for the players, and that's more fun because then they get there faster. So if a player's held up, um, or hold up somewhere, they're gonna get harassed by a bunch of zombies. But anyway, back to this spawning. There's a spawn here, and another spawn down there. Zombies don't always spawn there because there's a whole visual thing to make sure that zombies aren't just plopping down out of nowhere. But zombies will spawn from here and climb over those ledges, which serve as like a counter, and allow them to get to the player without the player getting back to their spawn, but the player can still interact with them, as I just showed. That's how most of these spawns work. A lot of these offshoot spawns, because they weren't intended to have the player interact with them. One second. Oh, that was almost great. But because they weren't there to have players interact with them, they were set up to they were set up with those barriers because nothing was really gained by having the player run into these dead ends, beyond annoying gameplay, because it's like, oh, I'm going to explore and I just got stuck, or this kind of stinks. So I wanted to create more of like that looping type gameplay and movement through the map, um, and that was kind of the goal with a lot of the motion on the map, a lot of the zombie motion on the map, was to get a good amount of motion without interfering with the player, especially in these early testing phases, to make sure that I have good movement, and then I'll interfere with it later with cover. But I want to make sure that I have a good base that I can then tamper with. to get desired effects. And this is going to be interesting. And I will showcase off more of the spawns in the next wave. There's the, okay. And showcase off more of that type of demonstration. It was just this wave wasn't exactly conducive to me moving around. Sorry for the dead air here. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to survive. Because I haven't picked up one of my ammo boxes in a while because I've been bottlenecked out. Which, yay, that's working, as intended. So back here we have another spawn in this room. It also serves as a trader room. This was kind of purely for the visual joke of having zombies, I don't know, come out of locker rooms or whatever. But it also works as it puts a lot of zombies in this basic network of corridors, because I didn't want it to be a maze. I don't want players to get lost in that way. I'd rather have interesting movement than confusing movement. But it serves as another spawn for zombies, so if the player decides to immediately go into the arena, or if they decide to run down this hallway to start, this funnel can still go both ways. And then over here, um, there's another spawn. Past this like back row of what I'm imagining like closets and I don't know if it's nice arenas and bony storage type area where a lot of the maintenance could be. There's another spawn here, and it has its own loading ramp. Again, I don't want players to interact with it, be able to hop over it, and players couldn't like hop on other people like in CS:GO, and so that was intended to it kind of bottlenecks players, but not in a unfair way, in more of a manner of just, oh, this is the end of the level, but zombies are coming from outside. So I hope to replace that barricade with something more thematic than just a basic ramp, such as like burning cars or a security barricade that's been overrun, that type of environment. I think would be more fun, but as it currently stands, I don't really have any textures in, because I'm still getting the general gameplay and flow down, and I don't want to overcommit to something before it's there visually and gameplay wise. So I'm gonna try and run out through here so I can showcase a couple other spots. One spawn that's yet to be added is the one in here, which I'm calling the Jumbotron, because I like the visual, just a Jumbotron that's fallen to the center. That is going to have its own spawn, but I'm just trying to figure out how I want zombies to interact with it. There's been some current bugs with having like two ramps perpendicular to each other, so I want to make sure I make that ramp. I might have to expand the Jumbotron to come up with a slightly better way. There's jumping nodes, which I have yet to fully figure out, which allows zombies to jump up and around terrain. So that will probably be the next big thing to add to make that more organic, but I'm worrying less about that until I get the second floor done, because right now this is still the first floor, and I want to make sure I get a second floor, hopefully with stands, but that might just change to be more of a sheer wall, depending on how game flow works. I'm willing to like compromise the thematic elements of the map to just make it more engaging to play. And then here's another spawn where it would be like the opposing team locker rooms, for lack of better terms. And it also has a ramp to make sure players can't get back there. It's not like I'm not trying to cut off player engagement. That's a dead end on the map, and it works as a fun way to have zombies come from. I forgot I welded this door, and I'll de-weld this door as well because there's no reason to keep it open. And this is the last spawn, I believe. Yeah, this is the last spawn on the map. It doesn't have a ramp because it's more of a enclosure. No zombies have been. Well, I haven't seen any zombies spawning from here because I've been too close to it. The doors go both ways. And so it doesn't have a ramp, but also players can't jump over it. So that'll be fixed with a skybox and extending the landscape beyond. And it doesn't have a ramp because again that would be a type of security barricade that's been moved. Some environment like that. Yeah, and so I get the only last thing to talk about really is the last gameplay element, which would be boss spawns. Because I use the same spawns for everything. So the way spawning works is I can set the way each zombie each which zombie size class. So that big huge guy there, he will only spawn in a large Z spawner, which will spawn zombies of any size that is listed or smaller. I don't have any special zombie spawners yet, which could be added to have more fun elements, like a manhole cover that triggers zombies popping out, or like a drain that spawns the little crawlers. And that's all stuff that will be added, that might be added as the level gets iterated on and I experiment more with the gameplay and what the level editor can do. Um, but currently every spawner right now is the same size because that seems to be the most engaging. Limiting zombies like bloats and flesh pounds to shortened regions isn't really interesting from my perspective. It just limits your possibilities unless you're doing something like manhole covers or having like the crawling zombies spawn on the ceiling, which I can't really do yet because, well, I don't have a ceiling. Um, but I might have something that they like spawn on some uh, overhanging pillar as I get the next floor in, and then again specify spawners as gameplay elements build to make it more visually interesting. I'm sorry this video is getting kind of rambly. I'm kind of buying for time to get to the boss round, but it's not really working out too well. So the way boss spawners work is they are essentially another size class, except they just say can spawn a boss. And so there's one here, the one over in that region. Just going to throw a grenade to kind of distinguish that, as opposed to just gesticulating wildly with my guns. Which, I mean, I have legs. I really should just point. Over there is another boss spawner, and then the one on the opposite end of the map, which I won't have enough time to run to, will also once we buy that grenade, we'll also be able to spawn a boss. And so the boss spawn is random, and the boss that spawns is random. It's between Hans Vulture and the Patriarch. Currently, I've noticed that Hans is the more engaging boss on this map. The Patriarch, because of this area of the map, isn't really fun if you play Commando, because the Commando gets these stealth enemies, and the Patriarch's gameplay revolves around you do a lot of damage, he goes invisible and runs away, and heals up. Well, a high-level commando can see cloaked enemies at a distance, and there's no cover here. So a smart team can engage the boss in this region if it's the Patriarch, have the commando if they already had that class, which people can swap classes freely before a wave. So it might be, oh, we might have the Patriarch, someone swapped commando type attitude. And so they move over here, and there's no cover, and the Patriarch gets overrun because he doesn't really have interest, because he's visible, and so he loses his invisibility bonus, he's wounded, and the commando uses long-distance weaponry to just put him out of his misery within the first round of the fight, which really isn't interesting. And as someone who doesn't play commando a lot, I was able to do that during testing. So that is definitely an issue that will get addressed in future iterations, and as I add more cover to this map and test it further, just more ways to visually break up the environment, because, well, yeah, having a basketball court or ice hockey rink, excuse me, while having that is fun, um, I need some form of visual color to make the rest of the mechanics fun beyond just theming of the map, because that's not enough to carry it for more than a couple waves. And I might actually make the boss round, and then we can see that spawner, if I can find the last zombie. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah. So, other than that, really all of the gameplay elements are in and intended except for lighting, and destructible lighting, because currently I just have two directional lights that kind of fill up the map. Excuse me, thought I felt a sneeze coming. And those, so those are lighting the whole map, and the reason that I'm getting these really garish shadows. and that's just something that because of this iteration, I want to focus a lot more on gameplay. I kind of let that element slide because it took time to get all the pathing nodes, to get the zombie behaviors, to get doors to work, to get items placed, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't over focusing on like, oh, I know exactly how all of these will move, and then next iteration everything changes. So I want to be sure that I'm not wasting my time on interesting elements. Another element is that I forgot to mention is all these things are now double-sided. On interior, all of the walls have an exterior and interior side when a player can move on the interior, because otherwise there's no need for it. So texture mapping will be easier. That was just something I missed in my initial iteration, was I thought that everything had... Oh, so we get the Patriarch. I'm not the Commando, so I won't show the exploit. That really would have been smart to show. Oh well. But he's over... No. I don't know where he is. So that's scary. Um, but the... Sorry, trying to listen to him. There he is. Okay, now that I know where he is, I'm a little less intimidated. So, I completely lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, there's interiors on all the walls to make texture mapping easier. And that will allow some more nuance in that respect. Yeah, so there he's running away, and I just completely lost him because I don't have... Oh no! I thought I hit him on phase 1. And so he's now running away to heal up to get to his second phase, which will allow him to do more damage. It doesn't increase his defensive stats, but allows him to do more damage, have a couple more abilities, and then come back now with extra zombies that have wasted some of the player's ammo, which is why I'm using deagles to clear. But yeah, he's getting angry. And then the zombies, as the waves go on, get stronger and stronger. The supporting ones, so it starts with these clots, and we'll get to bigger and badder guys. So right now I'm using the Jumbotron to circle around to try and separate me from the boss. And use it as cover, but that's really the only cover there, and it's definitely more player emphasized than it is zombie focused. Which would be an issue in the now PvP game mode, but that's definitely not the focus of the map. Oh really, got him in 2 rounds. But PvP definitely isn't the focus of the map, but it can be used for PvP all over the zombie spawns work for players, but that's just not where my mind is at right now. I want to make sure I have a fun survival map, because all PvP does is add in more interactions for the zombies. So if I have a good survival base, then the PvP mode will follow. None of this is important, so I'm just going to talk over it. Yeah, and I also haven't integrated fully in with the map though, so I don't know. I'll just do this and get taken to the lobby where I can finish off my thoughts. So yeah, that's my map and all of its gameplay. I'm not going to run it through a second time to try and get Hans Vulture, because that's unfair to the viewer. And yeah, so the big thing here was getting all the gameplay in place, making sure all of that was fun to go through and play. And in my next iteration, I'm going to focus on gray boxing out the top floor and getting that gameplay working there, because now that I know how the gameplay works, it's going to be much faster to implement. It's a lot less intimidating than I thought it would be. It just had a bit of a steep learning curve, so that will allow me to have more engaging gameplay, and then I can hope on getting more interaction between top and bottom floor, more ways to jump on the player, more ways to surprise the player, and then maybe if that all goes well, add in some more elements to allow a PvP game mode. A little bit more elegance with having spawns on ceilings and walls and ways to clamber around that way. But yeah, that's been my level, currently named KF Arena. And if you want to know more about my initial design stuff that was covered in my prior video, this was all about talking with how gameplay and all of that changed the level. So, yeah. Thank you for your time.